Hey Satya, how are you?
Hey, Kalyana, nice to meet you here. I'm doing great. Yeah, nice to be here.
Yeah, and it's great to virtually meet you. Let me introduce myself a little bit. So I've been in AI for about 14 years now, overall a couple of decades in the industry. I'm super passionate about turning value from data, and that's what got me into the AI in first place. I'm an industrial engineer from India, but I lived and worked around 7 countries in the world, and and I call United States my home now in Dallas. So it's a spectacular camaraderie in the AI community, and specifically with the CAIO Circle, which I enjoy a lot of learned colleagues. Other than work, I engage with these, mentor a few people, run a small group of neighborhood AI club or sorts, write papers, and and review books. So it's mostly about I'm so passionate about this that I always see for avenues to improve me and myself and teach. So I call it a continuous feedback loop for myself. Now, what about you?
That's amazing. Very impressive background, Kalyana. Um, yeah, I work for Google, so I'm a principal architect. So I've been in the industry for close to 2 decades now as well. And I started off as a C++ developer and Java developer, but an electronics engineer by education. So kind of tangentially related to computer science, right? And then from there, I've touched application development, full stack, and then went into data analytics, and then stepped into AI world and the world of AI. As you can see, like we are building a lot of AI systems, right, and frontier models and stuff these days. Um, Recently, I had the opportunity to author a book on enterprise cloud computing. And of late, like my focus is completely on data analytics and AI systems. So that's what I help enterprises in the US build and transform their digital journey with technology. So I'm really passionate about technology.
Excellent, Satya. Next time I meet you, I'll get a signed copy from you of the book.
Okay.
So that was fun. Let's get into a little bit, like let's warm it up, right? I know you have been in retail. You have a varied understanding about the industry. So what do you think of agents in the context of retail? It's like it's noise. It's everything is agentified right now. So demystify it a little bit for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think AI was, it kind of had this evolution of the journey, right? So you have been in the AI for like 14 years, which is like really a long time in terms of the AI world, right? So it's you are pretty seasoned, but I'll be preaching the choir here. But we started off with simple machine learning models, right? In the practice of artificial intelligence. And then it kind of evolved into data science. So where, hey, how can I put all of my data, because data collection used to be a huge challenge like 2 decades ago, right? And then how do I collect all this data and where do I store them, right? So and then storage did not become a problem anymore, right? So like data analytics become huge, and then data science became very popular. And now in the context of AI agents, I see people often confuse between like a chatbot, like, okay, I'm gonna go into a website, like a retailer's website, and I'm chatting with something. Okay, I used to have it like, how is an agent very different, right? So people tend to use, from a consumer perspective, an agent and a chatbot interchangeably, right? So the primary difference, like the way I like to articulate this, is a chatbot will basically, like, you give it a set of like trained data points, and then the machine is gonna respond to you, right? And that's it, like it stops. Whereas an agent is what we call as react, right? So reason and action, right? So those are two very important aspects of an AI agent. So whenever somebody talks about an agent, so it has to reason. So beyond just analytically querying some backend database or like a PDF file or something, it has to reason like what's the intent of this customer, right? Like understanding the context and then take some action against it, right? Like, hey, I'm tracking this package. Can you ship this sooner? Can you expedite my shipment, right? So an AI agent, a chatbot would say, okay, go follow this process, right? It basically reads from a standard operating procedure manual or something, versus an AI agent would say, okay, here are the options, right? So, okay, the customer is here and I can see they have placed this order. And then let me see what I can do to expedite this order, and then takes that decision, right? Can be human in the loop regardless, right? Like depending on how we configure it. But that's where it's a huge difference from just a machine assisting to true agency.
That's excellent. So the agents are about agency, and they interact with tools and with the environment. That's excellent way of narrating. Yeah.
Yeah, and in that context, right? So since you have had a long history with AI, I'd like to pick your brain on how do we differentiate, right? Like agents have a bunch of skills and it has a bunch of access to a bunch of backend systems, tools, what have you, or APIs, right? How do we differentiate that? Because an API can do that as well, from truly autonomous agents, right? So how do you see that?
The difference between two agents and autonomous agents?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is no difference. It's a continuum in terms of how agents, so things like maybe agents grow up to be autonomous. That's how I would say. It's a maturity curve on terms of autonomy. So
Yep.
you might start as a chatbot, but then when you're working with it, you realize that it can do something else, maybe a workflow automation. So you would expose a workflow automation to it, maybe give it more tools to read your SharePoint or Google Drive in your case, and then slowly add more tools and give more capability to it. So I see it as a continuum. You face different risks at the continuum, right? At the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to offload our cognitive load out to the agent, and we expect it to automatically remember the context and also executes those tasks in the environment that we live in an iterative loop. So we started with, we were very happy with RAG architectures before.
Yeah.
Now we are not even impressed with Hermes and Clawbots. We want them to be much more efficient and have much more autonomy, right?
True.
So our expectations also grow, and with that, the agentified systems and multi-agent systems with controlled harnesses are also growing, and it's an excellent time to be in AI. Actually,
Can't agree more. Yeah. So it's every day is a learning.
Yeah, and how do you approach, I think you definitely meet your customers and look at it. What is really stopping them from achieving the next step on the AI? What is their impediment now?
So I think from a consumer perspective, like when you start off, we see AI has basically democratized, IT, right? Very, very broadly, right? In all aspects of things, right? People are now not going, even Google searches has LLM behind it now, right? So it automatically starts you off. Like if you start asking a question, it starts you off. The first result is an AI mode, which is basically like powered by an LLM, right? So, and people are now planning their vacations, for example, using LLMs, right? So they're using all sorts of things just using an LLM. Hey, I want to buy furniture for my house. Okay, I'm going to do my research, right, on using the help of LLMs. I'm not going to scour 15 different websites or retailers to kind of figure out what I want, right? So that's where it is. But I think when it comes to enterprise adoption, right, that is a whole different ballgame. So when you are talking about AI, agentic workflows for enterprises, the whole um, people understand LLMs are not, how do I say, deterministic, right? So they are more probabilistic, right? So it's kind of like, they kind of think, reason, and you need to establish a variety of things, right, in a consumer scale. So a regular LLM, like whether it is GPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever, if you just take that and plug it into an enterprise context and say, I've given you access, it can do a lot of things to your enterprise that you actually don't want to introduce, right? So basically, the security aspect of it, establishing the guardrails, right? The governance, the scale, and security, right? Those are the three bigger things that we basically have to think about when we are going in for enterprises. So that's why we see a lot of people doing pilots. Oh, you know what? I want to build this system or a solution. That's awesome. We like, instead of doing a PowerPoint presentation, right now I can lead with a demo, right?
Yeah.
Because now I can do agentic stuff. The AI is going to build stuff for me. Okay, that's awesome. But then a lot of pilots don't scale beyond that point, right? Then people are just testing it, piloting it, but then the enterprise guardrails, security, right? All of those things are super important, right? So, but can the LLMs read my corporate information and not train the backend frontier models? Can the models keep my data secure? Or how do I protect my own workforce from not uploading sensitive data? Even if they upload sensitive data, how does it? Are there proper controls behind the scenes, right? So those are the three aspects that I see, right? So it's governance, security, and scaling, right? So those are the three aspects that I see, or impediments.
I sometimes wonder how do we believe these LLM vendors not to train from our data? Is it just that trust us, or is there something that we can do to look beyond it? It's very interesting to think about that.
So since I come from that background of a technology company who happens to build frontier models as well. So the way we have right, so it's out in the public, right, and anybody can go look at our data processing addendum, right? How Google, there is also an AI clause that we kind of add when customers go for enterprise scale implementation, and what we do in terms of the promise, right, and then the indemnification of that we offer to enterprises in terms of how we kind of keep those models within your own tenancy, right, and it doesn't cross train. We don't take that customer data to cross train our models behind the scenes, unless we work with a bunch of customers who have data and they want, like, they work with us, right, and then want, like, explicitly state they want to train the frontier models, right? Then that's a different thing. But by default, we don't cross train our models, right? So I would presume for any enterprise scale frontier models, I think that should be a standard.
That's great to know. That's really great to know. So I was just wondering, like, I was seeing a cartoon in my mind, right? Like, I was seeing it on LinkedIn sometimes. So it's like a counter. Earlier, there were very few ideas and a lot of usage. For the product you release, there's a bunch of usage. And now there are a lot of ideas because everybody can write code.
Yeah.
And some of them are not scaled enough. They
Correct.
don't get enough usage in the system. So where do you think we are blocking this? How is this stopping at vision and not getting into reality? What should, as technology leaders, we should remove to ensure that more of these things actually hit the reality?
Great question. I think you are talking about the classic funnel problem. Like, there is a I saw an infographic recently. That there used to be lesser number of ideas, right? And then people are like, hey, how do I innovate, right? Before the AI, it's kind of inverted, right? So there are so many ideas, but now which one do I pick and prioritize, right? So I think it's a classic, and I am also seeing another pattern, which is kind of little unfortunate, is everybody wants to get on this agentic AI or generative AI bandwagon, right? Whether you have an actual need or not. So it's more like, hey, I bought this power drill, right? Which is amazing. I saw it. It looked great, and I got it. Now I need to use it. Show me, should I go drill holes in like all my drywalls in the home, right? Just because I bought a shiny new tool, right? So kind of like a crude analogy, but I'm seeing that happen at a bunch of enterprises where they want to use AI, right? Even where we are like, we can challenge them. This is a typical workflow. You don't need any reason act thing for this. Is not an agentic thing. Oh no, I want to build an agentic workflow around this, right? So, but so it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse syndrome is what I'm seeing, right? And that is actually another reason, because there are KPIs that are being measured at the top level on like, hey, how much are you using AI? Are we really using AI, right? I want to show up, right? So there is a lot of pressure there. I think it'll kind of settle down as well. So which is also brings me to a good point, which I want to pick your brain on, is you have been in a ton of AI implementations, right? And what do you think is like the silent killer of AI pilots, right, in enterprises that actually nobody talks about?
It is expectations actually. So we start with a lot of people want to try new technologies. Sometimes there are regime building projects, but there are certain true problems. So I think the classic consulting questions like the 5 whys and why are you doing it, and are you, to your point, is it a solution in such of a problem? Those kinds of things have to be taken out, because when you hear a lot of projects not moving beyond a certain degree of maturity, and you're not seeing a lot of AI in production, it will slowly degrade the executive expectation from AI, which is not good for AI itself, right? Sometimes hype doesn't help the product. So I think it's one of the things that I can definitely get to you is so I'll take an analogy. I mentor a person and they are building a little chatbot with Gen AI, right? And most of it is wipe coded. However, they kind of assumed it knows everything just because a text to SQL worked. They assumed it knows everything.
Yeah.
So they didn't spend enough time to put an ontology behind it or having a semantic layer behind it. It doesn't understand the structure of the data. It has only certain context thing, right? So when engineers become very excited about technology, they start building these vibe coded products, which they don't see it through. However, I am not very critical of it. They should do it in pilot, but start learning from it. And do not assume that the context automatically is given to the models. You need to engineer the context.
Correct.
So prompt engineering is a passive. Context engineering is now, and then we will come to all harness engineering and all that stuff. So it's an overall maturity that we need to get to. Right now, we are not there yet, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I think, I mean, you just said it perfectly well. I think there is also, I think we are back in square one, right? Where in terms of building stuff with AI, right? Because now you still need uh, the same security. You still need to manage the like in AI. It's like managing heap and stack in your C++ or Java, right? Like you build like a huge class and a single single class with everything on it. Like it's gonna be bloated, right? So I think some of the fundamentals have not changed. I think that's still remains. Like you still need observability, right? You still need governance. You still need monitoring. You still need uh, agentic identity, right? So agents are going to be another identity elements that are going to be in the system. So you still need to put all those guardrails in place, and then how do you not bloat up once huge, like you start building something and you keep adding, to your point on the context overflow, right? And it's going to skip it. So you need to know design patterns, like how do I design multi-agentic systems, right, in AI workflow and stuff. So yeah, spot on.
Oh, can I reflect? I wanted to share an analogy that I think of based on what you said. Is essentially, so the nuclear fuel probably was invented in 30s. However, to create a safe nuclear reactor which can harness that energy in a safe way that it can power cities and villages took decades of continuous engineering. Right, the things that took decades are very general stuff, like a nuclear monitor, a simple a facility, and those kinds of stuff. Which it's not new knowledge. The new knowledge is the nuclear fuel and how to control it. So it takes time for the scaffolding to come together to be able to support in industry to convert this heavy energy into rightful usage, right? And Mo Gaudat, the ex-Google Brain executive, actually says it right. AI is like energy, and it has no good or bad intention. It's on you how you use it, basically. So that's a pretty thing. I don't know how does it rhyme with you?
I'm going to steal those two analogies, Kalyana. That's really amazing, right? I think it's just an evolution. It's just going to happen, not in decades, like not in years, not in probably in months, right? If not weeks. But it's the same
Totally
evolution. It's just going to be really fast that it's going to happen. Yeah, I really love the like both of those analogies.
That's right. Yeah, that's perfect. So just switching gears a little bit, right? Like, I would ask you a few would you rather questions and see what your answers are.
Sure.
Right. So would you rather have a perfect model with bad data or mediocre model with perfect data?
So I think it's like you have data analytics background and I have data analytics background as well. I think the answer is very simple. I think the data quality is supremely important, right? So I don't think the way I think of models is not as a permanent fixture, right? That's going to exist forever, right? For me, models are never perfect, right? So a model, by definition, it's not an analytical system. It's a model, right? So the way the models are trained, right? It's just happens to be an ML model that is trained on massive amounts of data, right? And then it became large language model, right? So it's just like any other ML model, right? So my point is the models are always swappable, or the architecture should be able to support whatever, regardless of what systems we build. The models should always be swappable, right? Like the model A, model B, right? And that'll be a version 1.0, version 1.1, 1.2, right? So they keep evolving, right? So, but we need to have the outcome in mind, and then test them, and then do automatic testing on a set of data sets, right? And then there are different techniques to do that, like A/B testing of different models to see how the quality of data comes out, using rubrics as a definition, right? So this is not an like an analytical problem. You are not querying a database table to check, hey, how much did we sell last week, right? So that's an analytical question that you can go write a query in a database, and it's going to tell you $3 million, right? And that's an exact figure. There is no dispute about it, right? Unless the data itself is incorrect in the backend, right? Versus how much like would we be selling next week or next month, right? That's kind of like a prediction, right? That the model is gonna run based on a bunch of historical data, right? And then you need to feed that. So my point is that the quality of data is very important, regardless of what models we use. So we can always swap out the models.
Oh, okay. So you're saying the quality of data, perfect data is much more important than perfect. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
I think if in that same context, right? Like, let me ask you, would you rather question back to you. So if you have been given responsibility to lead AI practice, for example, right? And there are different business units and subverticals within any enterprise, right? Would you pick and choose like one project, like a Gen AI project, and then scale that? Or would you kind of go a decentralized approach and then have 25, 30, 40, 50 small decentralized AI projects, and then democratize it?
Yes, that's a super interesting question. And couple of companies did try me to lead AI initiatives cross enterprise, and this has been my learning. Right, actually, I would cheat a little bit and say both, and I'll explain it. So,
Kalyana, we don't need diplomatic answers.
No diplomatic answers. It's what I really learned. So AI is energy, right? Like I'll build on that. Everybody wants to harness it.
Yep.
How if you deny certain sections of people not having it, it can create anxiety in terms of their utility and their ability to produce value. However, you also know that a lot of volume doesn't mean value. So the strategy that I typically advise is democratize. Have a method to democratize AI to everybody. However, your key value, your key thrust from executives is going to come from those 4 things that you actually scale and put it in production, right? So, it's good to have a two-pronged strategy wherein high democratization but low energy spent. So you need to design systems for that across the enterprise so that everybody feels empowered to try this new technology. But you also know that your top 5 initiatives are going to move the needle quite high and have your best forward deployed engineers, or just jargon, but people who are really good at turning things around on those projects to kind of get the value. That's my answer.
I completely agree. I think that's the way to go, because that's another challenge that I'm seeing enterprises are facing today. On either they're just going gung-ho and go big on one and then see what happens. And then there are another set of enterprises where, okay, I'm going to throw dots, right? And then it's all over the place. And then that also, there is no strategy, right? And it's like, use everything out there, right? And see what works, kind of model. But I like your perspective on that.
Thank you. And I'll ask you one favor back, and probably we'll say this is the end of it, right? And maybe you could summarize, and then we can end it. So, would you rather face a hallucinating customer service bot, or a supply chain bot that orders 10,000 extra coats for a winter?
Oh, wow. Wow. Actually, very interesting. I've been asked this question at one of my recent customer meetings by
the same question or something like this?
Something very similar on like, how do I prevent my AI agent from repeatedly placing orders, right? Behind the scenes, because now I'm asking my agent to be taking decisions or act on stuff, right? Like, what if it goes rogue, or like, goes on a loop and then does it? Kind of pretty similar question that you are asking, like, but on the other side, there is a end user facing example that you gave on a hallucinating bot versus like a back office agent, right? That's kind of placing unnecessary orders, right? So ideally, I would want neither, right, to happen. But I would say this is where the accuracy, like the tolerance level, it gets defined, and this is like a huge area which is kind of untapped or being overlooked often when AI systems go production grade, right? So, which is like the whole governance aspect that we just discussed about, right? So how do I catch, because it's going to hallucinate, right? It's there are edge cases where it can do certain things, like it can try to order 10,000 coats, as you mentioned, in the middle of summer or whatnot, right? So which is not correct. But how do I see that and do like arrest it before it goes to 10,000, right? Like, can it do 10 or like 100? Like, what's my tolerance level? Like, what level of autonomy am I giving the agent? So it's all about the controls that we keep in place, like safety filters, for example, right? There are circuit breakers that we can put. So it's the same thing, right? I go back 10, 15 years, and I was working with a payment company, and and they're like, on a weekly basis they run the payrolls, right, for different companies, and then one week the payrolls ran twice, right? Because the API, it's all driven through API, so the API was executed twice due to a system reboot restart that happened overnight, right? So that nobody caught. So it was a huge learning, right? And it was all over the news, right? And it became a huge thing, right, to deal with. And we mitigated it after the fact. But that's the same problem today, right? It's just that we never question how an API can run twice versus like, why is my agent, like, what happens if my agent? It's the same philosophy and concept. So having that observability and control, safety filters in place, right, and having a plan to catch these instances is very critical, right? Like, if a chatbot on a consumer facing side, it's even worse, right? Like, you place 10,000 is a huge number, probably, depending on the size of the enterprise. Let's say, like, I placed 100 extra orders. Yeah, it's detrimental. Like, we can figure it out, but like a real customer service bot, right? Different kinds of controls work, and we need to make sure what can an agent, like a customer facing agent, say, what can it not say, right? Like how it should treat the customer. Where are things like, are we erring on the side of caution and defining it and slowly scaling it, right? Like, take don't give full autonomy on day one, right? Start small and then, but keep moving the levers as you keep adding more controls and safety in place. Really enjoyed this discussion, Kalyana. A lot of learnings. I think from your perspective, obviously you have spent a lot of time, right? Not just in the generative AI space, but from predictive ML, right, all the way into generative AI, and then scaling a lot of pilots and real world projects. We touched on a variety of topics today, and I think I had a lot of learnings as well. And I'm definitely going to steal that analogy of yours on the nuclear power, right? And also AI is the energy, right? So those are two things. I think you should probably trademark them as well.
That's trademark, not mine, but yeah.
Yeah, we touched on a variety of topics. I think for key takeaways for me is, regardless of the industry, right? The AI agentic workflows are here to stay, right? And they are going to make lives much more easier, right? Similar to how various advancements in IT has happened over the years, right? So from thick lines where, okay, I have a computer, I have to go in front of the computer and everything is there in that machine, right? To thin client model, to internet, right? Then to cloud computing, Internet of Things, like blockchain. So I think every single technology has increased the efficiency of how we work, right? And when brick and mortar since I come from retail, always take this example and analogy. When brick and mortar used to be the mode of commerce, right? There was a whole new e-commerce era that was powered completely by internet, right? So if the internet was not there and the protocols didn't evolve, and then we dealt with a bunch of issues, right? HTTP, HTTPS, how do we process, not just discovering products on the internet? Can I buy products? Okay, if I buy products, is my payment data secure? How do I save it, right? So it's a whole continuum that we kind of over the years built it. So I think today's discussion was similar, right, in context on the agentic AI, in that the protocols are still evolving, right? So there is A to A, there is A to UI. So all how you build front ends are gonna change, right? It's not gonna be the same. How you build the middle tier is gonna change. How you build your back end, how do you define your data? So everything is gonna be looking completely new. And I feel, it's an evolving concept, but it's and we are fortunate enough to be in the forefront of it, driving that transformation and change.
I'm feel we are a very fortunate generation in that way. Like you said, I just want to chime in and say that Chernobyls will happen. Like there will be nuclear reactors which will get into some kind of trouble. However, our protocols, we will improve our safety and the humanity will figure out a way out of this. I'm pretty optimistic about where we are going with this. And my summary of call out to the industry is, do not fight on models. 5.4 is more than what you can do. Do not look for 5.5 right now. Figure out how can you harness more energy from 5.4 and make it real. Take some very needle moving use cases and make all of that real. So that would be my call to colleagues on the AI fraternity. So pleasure talking to you. It was amazing. Learned a great deal of stuff, and I'm sure this would come out excellent. Looking forward to the next episode.
100%. Really enjoyed this discussion as well, Kalyana.